Hello all and welcome to episode 86 of the 3 for 1 Sky Fantasy Podcast by fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. My name is Fergi and I'm joined as usual by my co-host Paul McAnulty. Paul, how was your Sky weekend?
It was a strange one. I went up in overall ranks on 34th now, I think. I always do this to you, but on last week's pod, I think I was like 40 something. So I went up roughly 10 places. But I went into Sunday's games 32nd overall. Right? The first set of games went through, and then I had captain Cancelo and I had Laporte in my team. Laporte scored, and I went down in rank.
I noticed that as well. I noticed that. I did the exact same thing as you. I was like, "Oh, Laporte scored. I'll go and check my rank. I might have even broken the top 100." And I went down like 10 places.
So you look at his overall like top 1k ownership, which is the only measure of what we have available, and he's sitting at 55%. That was before some people would have brought him in yesterday. So you think, but you still think like, and it's that concept. Like, I know there's coincidence, so some people around me might have captained them, but it's that concentration like in the top 100. It's hard to separate that out now from the top 1k ownership, because I think the top 100 there's more template.
Yeah, I think you're very right. I moved Havertz to Laporte yesterday, and I was like, what an inspired pick. This is going to chuck me into the top 100. And I went down in rank. It's exhausting. It's exhausting season.
Imagine you didn't do it.
I took on down to like 200 and something. I know. I've got one left now. I used that one yesterday. And I've got Ronaldo too. I'm tempted to go for Kane over Son on Thursday. We'll touch on this more. We've had some questions on it. It's obviously a really interesting point because Kane versus Son can have such dramatic swings either way, can't it? But I think these final 3 fixtures suit Kane more than Son personally, especially the last 2. The kind of low block sort of teams, but we'll touch more on that later. For any new watchers and listeners, you are very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our podcast and live streams. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. Welcome everyone in the chat. Wow, packed chat. Johnny White back in the top 1k again, hoping to cement his place in the season. Well played, Johnny White. Dan Cox is in. He's fuming. He's stuck in traffic. 3 months and Norwich Council still haven't repaired the ring road. 3 months. Joke. Unlucky there, Dan. Hopefully that ring road gets sorted soon. Daniel Barnes is in. Barnes. Sussex Martlet. L England has 1 transfer left. Which croc do I go for? Tom Hartnell, Jake P., Steve Manning, Dan Perry, Kieran Sutton, who is flying, Metallica 01. Paul Willis, hi all. First time watching live since the end of February. Hello there, Paul. Great to have you with us. Ian Parrin is back just in time. He was out today. And the dad course, who I believe is, I want to say, 2nd overall when I checked earlier. Yeah. That leaderboard is amazing. We'll take a look at that a bit later, but incredibly exciting. And Tom Hartnell put little caramelized onion sausages. Tom, I get all my sausages and meat from Lidl and Aldi. The food there, the meat there is amazing. And I know those sausages you're talking about, they're absolutely banging. Ian says no Laporte yesterday. He was 0.1 short. Ian, we have a planner on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. It's called Ian Parrin's Planner, which helps you plan your moves in advance to the 0.1. If you do want it, join fantasyfootballhub.co.uk and we'll get it sorted for you. Today, we're going to look at the key points from the last game week and the updated top 1k ownership, the key transfers made and the ownership swings. We will preview this week's matches and next weekend's fixtures before we take on Twitter questions, look at the updated mini leagues and the overall leaderboard too, which is very, very tight. Firstly, looking at the points in the weekend, Lukaku with a rogue 18 points. Where's that been all season, Paul?
Yeah, the most interesting thing, I've got 5 or 6 players to look at on this. I think Laporte 17-pointer, as I've said by my own tale of woe, I think was more you had to captain him yesterday to get any gain out of it. And Cancelo could have had a monster haul yesterday as well. Could have had 2 assists, 2 goals easy. So I still don't think that there was anything wrong with captaining Cancelo over Laporte. I think over the course of the season, he's done us well, and I don't. There's not a move that I regret, but it felt that you had to own, unless the rest of your team pulled up trees, you had to own Laporte to kind of hold rank yesterday and the other bits there. Nketiah, 17 points. Niall Murphy.
I saw he captained, didn't he?
He captained.
What a move. Well played, Niall.
So Nketiah moved from, he was only in 2 teams in the top 1,000 and he moved up to 3.5 ownership. That might have been some people taking a punt, just sitting outside the top 1K and then moving in on there. Raheem Sterling, another person that's big in the Twitter community. Tim Barry brought in Sterling and captain Tim yesterday. I watched most of the game and KDB was the best player, but when you've brought in a player and he scores 2 goals and he doesn't get man of the match, you've got to feel a little bit unlucky with that. But I read Luke Williams, Disable's tweets quite a lot on his predicted Man City team sheets, and he was saying it was difficult, obviously, with 2 games being in the same game. He's talking from an FPL perspective about picking the second team, but his view is that Pep rewards good performances or players that take their chance. So maybe Sterling's someone that is a nice differential now, that just because he played there doesn't mean he's going to be dropped for the next game. Yeah. Perhaps he gets a run to the end now. So 10.7 million. I've been burnt too many times by him, so I won't be going there. But I think if you were looking for something a bit different, then his ownership's he's only owned by 8 players in the top 1,000. And you get to see the team sheets on Wednesday. And if you've got spare transfers, he could be a good shout. Similarly, Zinchenko, he returned 13 points. We know that Diaz, Stones and Walker are all out for the season. So it's kind of 5 fits into 4 now. So Ake, Zinchenko, and like Fernandinho, I guess, can play centre-half with Laporte as well. So he is still a bit of a risk, but I'm too conservative about those types of players and not bring them in either, like Matip. That's why I've refused to bring Matip in all season, because of rotation issues, and he's probably been one of the best value players.
And the one match he was nailed for, Matip, was this weekend, and he didn't play, did he? Because he was rested midweek in the Champions League. Incredible. He should surely play on Thursday, you would guess. Not Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday.
It was probably Son's pace, right? Yeah. It was like probably the thought behind that. Ederson moved up from 1.9% ownership to 9.8 yesterday.
Wow.
I think that was a really savvy move from those. That would have been the optimal time to get off Pope if you had budget and transfers. I think that was a really sensible move for those that made that yesterday, and well played to those. That was Rodri is ticking along again. 11-pointer from him, 8.7 million. I know a few people in the Hub WhatsApp chat I've got Rodri as well, so well done to those owners.
Well played indeed. And what that means for ownership in the top 1K, Cancelo still top, 94.2%, Salah 89%, Saka 72%, Laporte up to 72% now, but you'd guess that was some that were coming in as well. Obviously, Van Dijk 62%, Pope 60%, and that's all. And then Gallagher and 50%, everyone else. And Jacob Ramsey looks like he might be, I don't know if he's back, is he, for midweek potentially?
Well, so Gerrard, there was a press conference with Gerrard today. So Ramsey's out midweek against Liverpool, but he's got a very good chance of being back for the weekend. So are you
hold?
Unless you've got a lot of budget and a lot of transfers, I think for me it's a hold still. Interestingly, Marcus Alonso, 28.7% of teams. There's rumours that he's had a massive bust up with Thomas Tuchel, so he could be missing for the remainder of the season if that's true. And I don't know. I don't know what his character traits are and whether he'd likely make up with them afterwards or not. But it's another interesting one for those that are currently holding.
The Son and Kane one is interesting as well for me. Harry Kane, 39% owned.
That would have been so. When I heavily tipped Ronaldo last week, and it was pretty obvious to tip Ronaldo, but it was all about whether you should use 2 transfers to do it.
Yeah.
I think was what my analysis was based on. But Harry Kane would have been a lot of people's makeshift to get there, or Son as well, and I think that's why they're lower than what they are. So Ronaldo's ownership jumped to 41.5% in the top 1,000 last weekend. It's now down at 15.1, and I think at least 100 of those managers, so another 10%, I'll be moving directly back to Kane or Son on Thursday night. Those that have jumped off already might have been doing some sort of chain move to get there, like via KDB or via Richarlison or something like that.
Yeah, Richarlison's shot up to 22.6. Son only in 29 as well. I do think it's low. The player not on here, which caused a lot of heartache yesterday, Ruben Dias. How unlucky our managers who brought in Dias.
But for me, this is one of the ones that's, I mean, like there was a question posed, I think it was by Tom P on Twitter, about what's like people's like takeaways from this season and how can you use it for next season. And a lot of people was like, not wasting transfers, not picking people for picking players from average teams for single game days. I just think this is one of these unavoidable ones because you've got a lot of games for City. Stones is out for the season.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I just think it's the analysis and the thought behind picking them is right, and it's just like the outcome's unfortunate as opposed to something that you can really learn from. I don't think
it's just it's hard luck. He got the assist. Yeah. He would have had the clean sheet.
He would have got 13 points.
He would have had passing
butterfly effect, but but City looked strong for a clean sheet regardless.
Agree. Interesting stuff in there. I think just on actually we'll look at Kane versus Son actually in a minute when we look at the fixtures. Looking at average Romanian transfers. So as of Friday, the top 10 were on 3, the top 100 were on 2.8, top 1,000 3.1, top 5,000 3.4, and then Ian Parrin asked on Twitter. On Saturday, was it? No, sorry, it was yesterday.
Sunday morning. Yep.
Yeah. How many transfers are you using today? 49% said 0 to 1, 30% said 2, and then 10% said 3, and 10% said 4 or 5. What's your takeaways from this, Paul?
Yeah. But you might need to bear with me on this. So
we'll look forward to this.
Going to a bit of maths as well. So just looking at some, I've already talked about some ownership and how that changed yesterday, but I'll go into a bit more depth in that just now. So some of the Arsenal assets, so Saka moved from 58.7 up to 72.9, so roughly a 14% swing increase. Nketiah only had 2 managers up to 35 managers, so 3% swing. Everton, Richarlison 1.7 up to 22.6, 21% increase. Man City, Ederson 1.9 up to 9.8, 8% uprise. Cancelo 86 to 94. I'll stop doing the decimal places to get through quicker. He's moved up 8. Laporte 55 to 73, so 18. Diaz only owned by 3 managers up to 91. As I say, Tom Hartnell, Liam Dorian, a few people. I honestly think that was a better move than KDB, and it's a move that I would have done had I went down the additional Man City route. It's really unfortunate. So he went up 9. KDB only went up to 17 from 6, so 11 increase. I thought it might have been a little bit stronger there. Sterling, it's kind of negligible. It's up from 3 managers to 8 managers. Jesus was the one that people maybe that was doing that Sterling move, maybe did the Jesus punt. So he went up from 2 managers up to 41, so 4 movement. That was Man City's defensive effective ownership went up from 1.44 to 1.87. So those are all the popular moves, or at least what I anticipated to be the popular moves that I've seen on Twitter and stuff. So overall, if you add up all the percentage uplifts of those players, that gives you 97%. So you're talking just lower than 1 transfer. There'll be a lot of other differentials that people have went for as well. So I imagine that it's a bit of an increase on that. So that was one transfer used across top 1,000. I looked at Ian Parrin's. I wanted to understand, can polls correlate to reality of what actually happens, like how much truth's in there as well. So if you look at his categories, he's got 0 to 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5. Very sensible. If I was doing a poll, I would have used exactly those bandings as well. So I've went, if it's 0 to 1, it's half a transfer. So half the people will use 1, half the people will use none. 4 to 5, half the people use 4, half the people use 5. So 4.5. So I've multiplied all the percentages out, and that gives 1.6 transfers getting used by everyone that mentioned that poll. So I think if you come somewhere in the middle and like take maybe 1.3, that would factor people overinflated, maybe changing their mind, and me not including all the single transfers for a lot of different players. That I think maybe 1.3 transfers used over the top 1,000 was about average yesterday. So if we're going on that basis, that would take the top 10 down to 1.7, the top 100 down to 1.5, and then the top 1,000 down to 1.8. So if I was asked what I think the remaining transfers are at this moment in time across those bandings, I think that would be my guess.
Do you see more being used in this midweek now, or do you think it'll be waiting for next week?
Potentially. Well, Ronaldo's ownership sits at 15%. Yeah.
It's got to fly down, haven't it, on Thursday?
Yeah, so there's 0.1 transfers getting used on Ronaldo, in my opinion. I think there'll be a few people that might be out of transfers. So I reckon his ownership after Thursday's game will be kind of 1, 2, maybe 3%, something like that. I think people are losing patience with Pope. I think that he will get moved on, even though for me, the optimum time and people that were quick thinking and thought of a plan, not only. It's not the fact that Pope's really disappointed. He still picked up saves bonus, even though they conceded 3 at the weekend. But I guess the concern would be from those that are looking at the detail is that Tarkowski's now injured, and that's Tarkowski and me both out for Burnley. I think you're going to struggle without those two. So goalkeeping moves might be what people are looking to move. And then there is still opportunity for Man City options, I think. And you're going to see the team sheet, so maybe people weren't keen on doing the City move on Sunday because you didn't see the lineup, and maybe this would be a good opportunity for a differential captaincy punt if Mahrez starts. I think Mahrez would fit in that category of really, really high ceiling. Yeah. If you're really going for something completely different, completely out the box, not many people's going to do it. So that'd be a good opportunity. So I can see it coming down a little bit, but I think that Sunday was a really good optimal chance to kind of utilise a lot of the remaining transfers. So whilst I see it going down a bit, I don't see it going down too much after Wednesday.
And the 4 players you asked me to bring up, Richarlison, Laporte, De Bruyne and Ronaldo.
Yeah, well, I mentioned it was to guide me, to remind me to talk about their ownership changes, but I forgot that what order that the slides were in. That was my fault.
Oh, that's fine.
But,
so,
yeah.
So while we're on Ronaldo, then let's have a look at the fixtures for this week. Firstly, Tuesday, Villa play Liverpool. You'd expect Matip to play. Captaincy, you'd guess, would probably very high on Salah.
This is this point of the season. This is this point of the season where I think that his ownership's going to come, that his captaincy percentage will come down quite a bit, and people will captain a Liverpool defender. The one concern I would have with that is that Van Dijk's passing stats, or Liverpool's passing stats in general, have dropped off the last couple of games. And a lot of teams have been picking passing bonus up against Spurs, so it's not because Spurs is a strong attacking outlet. Same with Newcastle as well. Newcastle give up a lot of possession, but Van Dijk didn't hit against Newcastle and then only hit tier 1 against Spurs as well. So that might be the one thing that sways people from putting it on one of the Liverpool centre halves.
Will it be on Salah or?
Yeah.
Wednesday 11th, we get to see all the lineups for this one. So Leeds against Chelsea. What's happened to them at the moment?
Yeah, I've got a thing like about Chelsea and about Mason Mount in particular, right? I knew, like, so when the Chelsea hop on, that it was the volume of games that they had. I know that in my head that Mount fits that category of player that I don't particularly like punting on because of the propensity of hit 2-pointers consistently before hitting a haul. But because they had the volume of games, it was like I was buying multiple lottery tickets, and I've just had multiple losers up until now, and I'm still, whilst every game's independent of the last, and that it doesn't, because he's hit a row of 2-pointers doesn't mean he's going to hit a 20-pointer. It's not a move that I regret, and it's not something that I will take into next season as a learning for me. I still think people probably disagree with me, but I still think that it wasn't a bad move to make at the time based on the volume of games they've got and his ability to hit the odd monster haul. And I haven't been captaining him, so it's not a case of I've lost out by not captaining somebody else in these games. But I'm hoping that this is that with him getting rested at the weekend, that this is a game where he can perhaps hit one of those large double-digit returns.
I completely agree with you. I do get frustrated. I've definitely cut down my, chat in these last few months. In just generally on on Twitter and in chat groups and things, because for a few reasons, I do find it quite all-consuming at times, and I struggle to get out of it. But I do also get quite frustrated. The worst one, which just riles me, is when like yesterday, should have captained Laporte. Well, if we all had hindsight, we would obviously all optimize and completely maximize everything. If Laporte hadn't have scored the Cancelo goal, if Diaz had scored that goal and not got the assist, the Cancelo one was the obvious right move, right? And it's similar with all the things. I think with Mount, you're absolutely right. If you look at that Man City hop on last season, for those who didn't hop heavily on Man City, it destroyed their season. Because they had a 5-for-1, or it's crazy run of fixtures, wasn't it?
So I would align Mount with Gundogan from last season. So remember, when you picked up Gundogan at that point, he wasn't a 5 to 6 point kind of type player. He was getting a 2, 4, 2, and then he was getting a 10-pointer, a 15-pointer, 2, 4, like similar on that vein as well. So, but it just came in. It just came in those times, and it's not here. Like, Mount's still Chelsea's top scorer in the league. So, yeah.
I just think, you load the gun, right? You plan, you prepare, and then you see these opportunities for really massive hauls. And if they pay off, they're really obvious. If they don't pay off, it's like, I knew I shouldn't have done it. But I just don't see it like that. I just see it as you made the right move. It just didn't happen for whatever reason. You don't know what's going on with the scene. Kind of behind the scenes at the moment with Chelsea. It was the right move to go in on Chelsea, and probably 70% of the time it would have paid off handsomely in defence and in midfield. It just hasn't worked. But
there is, like, I'm not naive enough to think that I don't make mistakes and that I could have played things better. Like, I think the point when I jumped on Maddison, I could have avoided that. I knew he had the underlying hip injury that's kind of has been managed. I know that they've been rotating a lot for Europe, and even with the volume of games, maybe that's something that, like, that's one that I would box as, right, think about why I made that move. Was it a mistake? And if it was a mistake, why was it a mistake? And then take that on to next season. But as I say, for me on the Mount situation, I'm pretty happy with my decision. It's not paid off. I accept that. But it's not something that, in that specific instance, that I think that I'll take as I should do something differently in the future in that position.
Agree. So also the games on the Wednesday, we got Watford against Everton, Leicester home to Norwich, which could be a profitable game there for Leicester, the way that Norwich are conceding at the moment. And then Wolves v Man City. You would guess Cancelo if he starts again, maybe Laporte, the obvious captain. But we all know that whoever scores the highest points that game, everyone should have gone for. When Daka scores a hat-trick against Norwich, I knew I should have brought in Daka. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. Paul, who was the best captaincy on Wednesday?
Cancelo.
Oh, yeah, boring sod. Yeah.
Well, he looks in, but like I was saying earlier, he could have had 2 goals and 2 assists there easy. And although he's not racking up the passing bonus, I don't know that I don't know that that's putting me off. Like, if he starts, I'll definitely be captain Cancelo. And that's if I owned KDB. I could see why if you had a few transfers, if Vardy started against Norwich, and you've got like,
I completely understand that, yeah.
And if you've got 3 transfers left, and
absolutely
knowing that he could get injured, and then like you're sitting with I don't even know how much he is because I refuse to buy him this season, but if he was like 10.5 or 11 million, like knowing that you're sitting with that weight of money in your squad if that was your last transfer,
even like Ronaldo onto Vardy onto Kane just for a 1 game, a kind of a Hail Mary. It's only 1 transfer you're using then, isn't it?
If you're sitting outside the top 1,000, or you're and that's your aspiration, or like, and you really need to get something to jump in, or your mini league rivals 40 points ahead of you, something like that would maybe be a good 1 game punt, as you say. If you're moving Ronaldo back onto Kane or Son, but yeah, I wouldn't be doing it if I was like on the breadline of transfers.
The breadline, indeed. And finally, the last game of the week this week, Spurs and Arsenal. I think I'm tempted to go for Kane for the last 3, but I'd be tempted by the double up if there is. If
I was going to say, not a lot of people's talking about the double up, and if I had maybe like 2 transfers left,
these fixtures are massive, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially the final 2, home to Burnley, as you just said, who have got no centre backs, and
they've got Norwich, and then they play
Norwich. So I think Spurs in these last 2 could absolutely make hay. I completely agree with you.
Yep.
If you had to choose between Kane and Son now for Thursday, knowing what who would you be going for?
Well, the ownership's like 40% Kane, 25% Son. Is that right?
I think it's 39 and 29. But yeah.
I honestly think, depending on the outcome of the game, to see how the bottom of the top 1,000 flows in and out, and those that own the better of the 2 scoring wise on that specific game, I'll obviously change it. It would surprise me if Son's ownership, say they both scored the same, so level playing field, both score the same. It would surprise me come Friday morning if Son's ownership's higher than Kane's.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think with the way that people might have done some moves yesterday, to get in KDB, who takes up a bit more budget, and move things around in a sensible planned fashion, or brought in Richarlison perhaps for like Gallagher or something like that, where you're using a little bit more budget that you hadn't aligned before because you're going to bring back in Kane. I think people might have replanned to bring in Son. I think his ownership's going to be higher. Who's the best captain? I mean, they've both got similar right? So like expected goal involvement, so combination of goals and assists. But Son's elite finishing has meant he's been scoring more points recently.
I don't know.
Sit on the fence. If you're going to ask me who'll score more points, I'm going to say Kane.
I say Kane as well.
But it's not like I've got nothing to back that up. As I say, both their expected goal involvement over the last kind of 6-8 weeks. I can't remember what the parameters were of some of the analysis that I've seen on Twitter recently, but they're both at a similar goal involvement level. But it's just that Son's elite finishing in these circumstances is kind of upped it, and he always outperforms his.
Yeah, he does massively.
Goals, right? Yeah.
But I do expect, maybe not so much in this game, but definitely the last 2. Like, there's no way that Burnley and Norwich are just going to go for hell for leather against Spurs today. They're just going to want to not be battered, which I think suits Kane more than Son. I think they'll play a low block. They'll be crowding the penalty box, which to me suits Kane more than Son. But
wish I could get a double up.
Yeah, same. A couple of questions from the chat. Sam Arundel, Matip worth keeping? He is for me, Paul. What about you?
I think he'll probably play. his expected starts and my analysis on that hasn't been particularly great this season. I'll openly admit that's 1-0 against me, but I expect him to start every game now, and I think Konate plays the 2 finals.
Yeah, agree with that. And Kieran, worth punting on Foden for the last few games, say over Kulusevski. For me, I think the problem with Foden is he just doesn't seem to score many goals or get many assists. He doesn't seem to have a haul in him. He had one haul earlier in the season in like game week. It might be 9 or something, when he scored 2 against Brighton. I want to say one off his bum and one was a deflection. But other than that, he just doesn't seem to haul. I think that's my problem with Foden. I'd probably go for someone else. What do you think, Paul?
I wouldn't go for anybody. I'd keep Kulusevski. Arsenal, Burnley, and Norwich.
Burnley and Norwich. Yeah, that's the thing as well. Yeah. Anyone from Man City? If you were plumping for someone.
Yeah, I mean, on that chain move that we were talking about with Vardy there, or even with the thought that you might keep the person that you get in, maybe, especially if, like as I said earlier, if it's a Man City player that performs well, and the likelihood is that, or there's a good chance that they stay in the team. It's not a 1 in and 1 out if you come in and score a brace. So maybe if the person disappointed, you could then take them out, but if not, you kept them. I think Mahrez is he's going to be so lowly owned that he could be a real good differential.
A question from Paul. He has Alonso and Diaz. 3 transfers left. He's on a 5-3-2. Would be the best way, Paul, to fix his team.
Well, I obviously don't know the rest of his team, but doing something like Richarlison and Matip would take you to 4-3-3, and that's got the right budget for it. I don't know if he already owns those players or not, but that you could afford that with those 2 moves.
I quite like Zinchenko as well. I know you said that Fernandinho may slot in, and he might, but even if Zinchenko gets 2 of the last 3, I think he'd be really good.
Yep. The thing with Richarlison, and I expect Matip to play all 3, and Richarlison will have 4 games. Yeah. Again, I don't know who's in the team. And if one of your transfers was earmarked to bring Kane in, I don't know what the 2 that you've got up front, but if one of them is earmarked for Kane, Son is only a little bit more expensive than Diaz. I think it's 10.3 to 10.8. So again, manoeuvring that way and bringing in Son could be a shout.
And the dad course says presumably that anyone doubling up on Kane and Son will have to go without Salah or for the final game, or miss Kane versus Norwich. Almost impossible to get all 3 in. I don't think it's that impossible. If you haven't got, like, Van Dijk is probably the one for me who's the highest owned one, who kind of eats up a lot of budget. But if you've got Matip ahead of Van Dijk, and you've got Ramsey, or
you could realistically be sitting with a midfield of Ramsey, Gallagher, based on ownership,
and Saka.
Ramsey, Gallagher, Saka.
Yeah.
Your defence, you could have Thiago Silva, who's 8.6. We're not spitballing out players to make something work. This is this could be a
template team, isn't it? Yeah.
This could be a realistic template team. Yeah. Matip, Thiago Silva, Laporte, Cancelo. Then I think that you could do.
I don't think you're far off, are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're stuck with Pope as well.
Pope and goals, yeah. I could be wrong. I've not worked out.
I don't think you're far off. You may have to squeeze kind of 500,000 out of somewhere, but yeah, I don't think I think for me it's been Van Dijk or Son. I think has been the one, or 3-8 million-ish midfielders and no Ramsey. I think that for me has been the decision point, which has split a lot of the template, because I've got the 3 midfielders, which is why I can't afford Van Dijk or Son. If everyone's got kind of Ramsey or maybe Norgard, you can have Van Dijk or Son. If you haven't got, it's that kind of Son or Van Dijk. And Dan Perry's got Norgard and Ramsey, so he can afford all of them. But and Davis just acknowledged, that works. Just a thought there for a plan. Let's look at the weekend fixtures now that we touched on it a bit already. Spurs versus Burnley, Wolves, Norwich, West Ham, Man City, Watford, Leicester, Leeds, Brighton, Villa, Palace, Everton, Brentford. This has completely passed me by and got over my head, by the way. I didn't even realise earlier that there's no games on Saturday. There's no Premier League games on Saturday.
Because they're not allowed to have the game on the Premier League at the same day as the FA Cup final.
Yeah,
is that right?
But it completely passed me by in all my planning. So to have an FPL deadline, what would it be, 10:30 on a Sunday morning, is going to be absolutely bizarre as well, isn't it? But yeah, I think for me, Kane or Son versus Burnley must be very, very tempting, especially as you see the lineup. You don't see the lineups for any of the other games. What's you thinking here, Paul?
Yeah, that's my thinking as well. I'll be on whoever I pick out of Kane or Son, and I think that I'm veering towards Kane, albeit I've left myself relatively flexible so that if I got an injury somewhere in my team, if it's to a cheaper player, I would move Son in, and then if it's free range or the plan that I'd already made, I'll bring Kane. But yeah, I'm going to captain whoever out of those two that I bring in.
Cool. And then on Monday, Newcastle versus Arsenal. A lot obviously holding on to Saka at the moment, who will be a popular captain. Anything else here, Paul?
I think if you again had a couple of transfers, that Nketiah looks really sharp, looks on form. I think he'd be a nice differential. Saka seems a bit on the peripheral just now. It's not like involved right in front of goal. I know that's a small sample size since when he was doing really well against Man United and a few other games a couple of weeks ago as well. But yeah, if I was going something different, I wouldn't avoid Nketiah if I was wanting something different. But Saka's ownership, he's now up to 72.9% of the top 1,000. I think that the majority of those owners will be captaining him on Monday.
His price is lovely in Nketiah as well at 7.3. You can maybe sneak him in without having to do any real surgery, can't you? You know, you can.
Well, Gallagher's the same price, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Interesting one there. Okay, good stuff. And just the quickest of looks at next week, midweek, on Tuesday, Southampton against Liverpool. Again, we've got this whole.
For those considering getting rid of Salah, I would look at this game.
And because Southampton again.
And if I didn't own Salah and he starts in this game, I would be worried as a non-owner.
I would agree, because I think the XGC has taken an absolute hammering over the last few weeks. Everyone just seems to be battering something at the moment. Not really sure what's happening. They're such a streaky team, aren't they? Incredible. They're either fantastic or they're bloody awful. There doesn't seem to be any kind of in between, does it? But yeah, I agree with you there, Paul. And then Thursday the 19th, we have Everton, Palace, Chelsea, Leicester, and Villa, Burnley. So
for me, Thursday the 19th, for anyone, I think there's a question on Twitter about a differential captain. For me, this is the one day. So I don't like picking differential captains on days where there's a standout captaincy option. Now, I mean, if you nail it that day and the highly owned captain doesn't do well, then you obviously get a massive springboard. But what I like is picking a differential captain on a day where there's massively split captaincy, and I can see that next Thursday. Whether Coutinho's back in the fold for starting position or not against Burnley, I guess we've just talked about Burnley's woes defensively. Whatever Chelsea attacking asset starts, or their defensive assets as well, like for the guaranteed kind of passing bonus. And then Palace have been decent, but again, Richarlison on his day could be a good differential captain if his ownership doesn't shoot up this coming Wednesday.
I don't really fancy him against Palace personally. I think Palace defensively have been really good. You know, he may sneak a kind of attack and return, but I can't see a hole there. If whoever starts for Villa or Chelsea, really, I personally think that they could get the hole.
Yeah, my thinking is that to come next Thursday, most people will be out of transfers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or thereabouts, and you're playing with what you've got. And we have no idea what Chelsea lineups are at present. Coutinho seems to be now. Well, is he out of favour? I don't know if it was a rest or not, but he played well with a different system with him not in the team. People might be bringing in Richarlison for volume of fixtures, and therefore that opens up the possibility of captaining him that day if your Chelsea assets don't start. But yeah, I agree with you that if everybody played, that Richarlison's possibly not the best differential captain on that day, but he has an option if you find that none of your other assets are starting.
Ian's asked if you would bring in. So if we're talking about bringing Nketiah in on Monday potentially, would you bring him in earlier on Thursday? Now, I probably personally wouldn't, because if you're thinking of Gallagher, for example, it's just a 1-for-1 fixture there, right? And I think as we've learned more and more this season, information over another fixture has been incredibly important. Obviously, if you don't have Saka, say, then I definitely wouldn't do it, because you're going to want to wait until the Monday to see the lineups. I mean, if Lacazette did start on Monday, you'd be a bit sick, wouldn't you? So, I personally wouldn't, because
if you were doubling up and you already had Saka, so you already had that comfort blanket, and then I see it as less of a concern, because, like you say, if you turn up on Monday, and Lacazette does come back in, because he's going to get a swan song kind of, right, because he's finishing up at the end of the season, right? I know that's the second last game as opposed to the last game, so you could see Lacazette starting a game, I think. But yeah, I think that's what, if I already had Saka and I was doing it, I would consider doing it against Spurs. If I didn't have Saka and I was bringing in Nketiah in as my single coverage for that day, I would wait till the Monday, like you had suggested.
I personally wouldn't do either. If you're thinking of Gallagher, as a kind of prime person there, in that time, Palace play Villa away and Everton, so you're not gaining any fixtures, either. I think that's the thing. If you were really gaining, if Palace were blanking on the weekend and they were having a 2-for-0, I can understand it more. But it's 1-for-1, right? And I know that Gallagher hasn't exactly been on form, but if you're flush with transfers, you probably can, because you can get yourself out of it. But if you've got 1 or 2 left, and you're going all in on this move, I mean, how many times have we been stung by trying to plan a bit too far in advance? And I know it's only a matter of days, but I think that's my, we'll talk about kind of season learnings and takeaways, probably, a bit at the end here, maybe a bit more next week. But one for mine has been, don't try and preempt what is going on now to what will even be in a week's time. Never mind, a fortnight or 3 weeks time, even a week's time. Everything changes in terms of loads of different things, not just form, but there's loads of things change. But we all play the game differently. Sussex Martlet, 1 transfer left: Pope to Alisson, or Edison, or Gallagher to Kulusevski. Should have probably done Pope to Edison yesterday, I would say. What's you thinking there, Paul?
If I was in that position, what would I do? Yeah, I'd probably do Pope to Ederson, I think.
Pope to Ederson.
Still, even though I would have done it yesterday, but
yeah,
we can't go back in time, so we start afresh today. I think I'd do Pope to Ederson if I was in that position.
Okay, let's have a look at some of the questions. Thank you so much for those who are sending questions on Twitter. Ian says, which goalkeeper, defender, midfielder and striker do you expect to score the most points during the remainder of the Sky FF season?
I'll be boring and say Ederson, Laporte, KDB and Kane. But if I was saying who's got a hole in them and could potentially go up there as an anomaly, Pickford, Zinchenko, Mahrez and Sterling.
Flipping heck, Paul, you are organised. I'd maybe chuck in there. Quite fancy Zaha to do quite well as well. Kane as well. Mentioned Kane. I wonder if he'll go under the radar a little bit just because of the form that Son has been in. I do fancy Kane to do some damage in those Burnley and Norwich games. FPL Spartan says, I don't have a question per se, just a big thank you to us both for providing insightful, entertaining Sky FF content. It would be great if you could do a stream pod with all the 4 Nations competitors and end of season roundup. We will see what we can do.
I I like FPL Spartans literacy in his updates on the Four Nations League. If you've ever seen it, it was quite entertaining. Very good.
It is good. Superb. And Dan Cox says, how's the Nations League shaping up? Battle for third. Is Dorian done for? Has Fergi backed it? Is Cox cruising to third? It's incredibly tight, isn't it? I think there's 10 points between the three of us now. We'll touch on that a bit later. And FPL Spartans gives us a rundown on that. Paul at Sky Player in FPL. Second deadline missed a matter of weeks due to baby parenting duties. 20 points squandered ruins any chance of catching Paul. Hope you have a plan for this next season, mate. Yeah, it's tough time having a young one, Paul. You're not using that as an excuse of when I give you a good battering next year in this. Amon Tatler says Kane or Son. I think we both look like, as it stands, I think I'm going for Kane personally.
So they are.
Yeah, I think we're both going for Kane there. Dan asks, how much will Haaland be next season? They normally cap it, don't they, at 12 million. Do you think he'll be 12 and others will be less?
There was a couple of... I thought that premium strikers were more at 13 a few years back, and that they've slowly got them back.
Okay.
There was definitely a couple of seasons ago where Salah was like 12.3 or 12.2 or something like that. And you have to put him in at 12.5, I think, at least.
Going to be an animal in if he, I've seen some stuff on Twitter, suggesting he won't play all the games, he'll be subject to pep roulette. I know his injury record is a bit suspect, but generally speaking, if he plays even 80% of the games, I can see him.
They need to, on a pricing perspective, they need to bump him up. And I know that you and I had slight contrasting views on this, but for me, they need to the premium defenders. And do you know something? Maybe I haven't mentioned this before. I think the backup defenders on the top teams need to be priced only a little bit lower than their counterparts in case an injury happens, because it makes players auto default as well.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I would have Van Dijk at 11 million, and I would have Matip at like 10.6 or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Tom says Diaz replacement feel hard done by, but what can you do? Thinking just going straight back to VVD till the end. Already planning Ronaldo to Son. Do you think VVD is the best replacement there, Paul?
If Tom doesn't have Laporte or Cancelo already, then yeah, I think those three are the best three options. Or if he's got needs budget elsewhere, I still think Matip plays the next three as well. So if you could use the money elsewhere, if you've got another one or two transfers, I'd consider that. But yeah, the four of the defenders from the two top teams, if you don't own, I would just consider getting them back in 3 games each. Dave
Simple Goal, what do you expect average transfers to be by Friday?
Well, it was Dave's. I was already going down that route of where I was going anyway. I'd already spoke to Ian Parham, see if he was happy for me to use his poll as kind of a placeholder. So it was that question that I then answered by where I thought they were just now. So 1.7, 1.5, and 1.8, I think was the three figures that I'd come up with.
Do you think there'll be one by Friday with the use this week, or?
I still think they'll maybe come down like 0.2 each bracket. Oh. So if I was going for Friday, in fact, no, because of the Kane Son situation on Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, closer to 1, but still over 1 in each of them, I would say.
And then next Friday, kind of like 0.6, 0.7 maybe.
Yeah, maybe even less, because you've got that like double game week for kind of 3 or 4 teams. So what can be 3 or 4, can it? 4 teams, right? Where again, people might be using them on the Everton players, or yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if looking at the stats before. Maybe Dan or someone will know of where it goes into the last game of the season. What's the averages, and how do we find out if those averages ever get used? Like, is there people that just forget and don't use transfers? Is there someone that's 900th right now that's given up and sat with 10 transfers left? I'm not sure.
Pete S, with Maddison's injury, do any of the Leicester assets interest you? They still have plenty of fixtures. I think it's a tough one. Like I say, I think the home game against Norwich could be an opportunity to daisy chain onto Kane or Son, or double up on Kane or Son on the Thursday. I think other than that, it's quite tough to pick out a player due to injuries, form, multitudes of options in all positions actually now, haven't they? It's very hard to pick who the starting 11 will be.
I think weirdly enough, Everton interests me more than Leicester.
Yeah.
They've got the 2 home games after, so they play Watford away, and then they've got the 2 home games against Palace and Brentford next week. Whilst Palace and Brentford have been on good form, Everton's home form is really good. So, quick
comment in the chat from Lim Powell. We have a Paul McAnulty in our mini Dream Team league, who is 3rd at the moment. Gav's greatest league ever. It wouldn't be the same guy, would it? Absolutely not. Paul is renowned for not entering as many leagues as he can, Lynn, so it's definitely not him. Rab K says, with Adam Hopcroft of FPL Green Arrow fame going well in Sky, I think he's up to about 52nd or even higher now. He's going to do a cameo on the podcast. We may see what we can do there, but he has had a very, very good season. He got on Son a few weeks ago and captained him a couple of times, I think, so he's had a very nice late run there. Dan Barnes, if you could go back, which one transfer do you wish you hadn't made this season? Mine was bringing in Neves for a Wolves single game date, and he went off injured after 10 minutes. Cost me 2 transfers for 4 points. Could do with them now. Any regrets, Paul?
Yeah, I was trying to be overly smart one week, and I brought a Tottenham defender, Eric Dyer, I think. He started,
kept that quiet.
Yeah, I got rid of him the day after. I didn't really need to do it. I weighed it up and I thought, it looks like you could probably pick up passive bonus in 3 of the next 4 games, or something like that was going through my head. And I was like, that extra budget of where I'm saving it could be used to do this move instead of this move. So I did replan it all out, and I was like, it's just not a me move to do. But I think it was like a false economy on passing stats from Spurs at that moment in time. And I was like, I should have thought a lot about that more. There's not and again, I'm not being pig-headed, probably more than big-headed about it. I think I've played the exact same way that I set out to play at the start of the season, albeit 1 or 2 transfers that I regret, and that those are the learnings that I can take. And I was chatting to Ian Parran at the weekend as well about transfer usage and holding on, because I'd asked them I don't like plagiarizing people's stuff, so I always ask if I can use their content if I go on tweets or make up or do analysis on certain points. And I think I'm a good at transfer planning. I don't think I'm great, and I think there's a few small tweaks I could do, and that was one instance of that. What about you?
Yeah, I don't. Do you know? I know it sounds very stupid. Nothing springs to mind. I've obviously made a crappy transfer or 2 or 5 somewhere along the way, but nothing really springs to mind. I think the thing I didn't do is more than making the one transfer was I didn't go for Ramsey at overhaul, even though I kind of bigged him up on the overhaul special, and I think it's something again which meant I found it really hard to get to 5-3-2, which is where I really wanted to get to. I think that for me is the key move I got wrong. So it's not so much the bad transfer, it's not backing myself with Ramsey, and it's definitely something I'm gonna take into next year. Norgard's kind of I think it's easy when you look at captaincy days. Look at that Brentford one, right? When everyone was like, who that massive Brentford, who should we go for? And people were
Southampton.
People over Tony and Mbeumo, and people were saying go for Norgard because he's just cheap, he just ticks along, and you just think you just can't help but be sucked in by the potential for a haul, can you? And Norgard is never going to haul, right? I say haul, he may score a goal and have a bit of bonus.
Remember when you genuinely thought he was going to score that night?
I did, yeah. I don't know why. But I brought him in, and I tell you what, there's a bad move. I brought him in, and then I moved him on. If I was bringing him in, I should have just brought him in and left him in. So I think that finding that enabler, which enables you to get to 5-3-2, is something I need to take a bit more seriously in this game and and other games, and just wait them out, and just you could get 2-2, 5-4, 2-2, and then the odd kind of 8 or 9, but for what they do for the rest of your team, enabling a strong back five, the 2 premium strikers, I think that's a big learning for me for next year, is how important that actually is, and shouldn't be overlooked. Ben's looking for a good time for a differential captain, try and make some gains. He asks about Wednesday 11, which I think we touched on earlier, to go with Richarlison versus Watford or Mount v Leeds. Would you look elsewhere? Can you see a day, Paul?
Yeah, and I think that was one that I was like, that I avoid, and maybe naively. Maybe I could reassess this myself, but I just think when there's an obvious 5 points, like from a Laporte, and that at a very minimum, that I don't like going against those consistent picks. But since the question is, can I find a differential? I think any of the Man City attacking assets on that day, and Mount, all have the potential, and you've mentioned Vardy before. But for me, if I was going not overly risky and trying to find someone that could haul against the grain, that I would look at Thursday the 19th of May, because there's not a standout option for me, and there's a multitude of players there that could do really well.
Cool. Martin Beasley, 3 transfers left. Should I use one on Pope? I suppose it goes down to if you've got any plans for those 3. Because say it could be an idea to use them a bit more kind of aggressively, I suppose, and go for the Spurs double up maybe, or something like that. But there's a fixture left. Pope's got 3 left, haven't he? 3 games left, even though they are against, we've already said, they got Spurs. Don't expect them to do much there. Was Villa the other one? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is why the opportune time was yesterday, because not only are you picking a goalkeeper from a better side, but they've got more volume of fixtures. I'll come back to bite me at the end of the season if you recap this point. But I think that moving to Pickford could.
Lots of games,
could be a good move.
And they've tightened up and improved, haven't they? We've answered Darren's question around Diaz replacement. Billy says, taking out Salah after the Villa game, what mid or strike would you bring in from City or Spurs? He's already got Kane. I think I would say definitely go for Son if you could. Any other things there, Paul?
If you don't already have the double Spurs attack,
I don't think he has.
I would get one or the second one.
Yeah,
I think even having the 2 of them as a differential, as opposed to a single player that's going to be captain below.
Shane Hodkinson, 1 transfer left, was planning on moving Maddison to Saka on the 16th. Is there a better option? He says, yes, City, Spurs, and Liverpool covered. I suppose you looking at that Newcastle Arsenal game. You don't have to cover that game. I think if you can get to Son, you probably can't, I would guess, because it's a couple of mil more. But I'd be tempted to go for that and stuff the captaincy for the Arsenal game. I think I would rather have a double up of Kane and Son for the remaining fixtures personally. If you're going risky, you could maybe go for Nketiah or just go for Saka if you want to play it safe.
Yeah, you are getting into that territory of is there truth behind the teams are on the beach or the teams have got nothing to play for? Because Newcastle fit that, if you believe in that, or you've got stats to back up, Newcastle fit that mould, whereas Arsenal still fighting for 4th. So I would probably consider just doing that. If that's a move that you've got planned, you'll have more information by then. So if a player's injured or something like that, then they might be the person that you move off to Saka.
And Hutchinson has dropped Salah this past weekend. Was this a wise choice? I have Son and Jesus up top. I think we mentioned the one that scares me. Next Tuesday, is it, against away to Southampton? You guess he'd be very highly captain against a very leaky Saints. But But then, I do think, I think I mentioned this on the FPL pod, is at the moment, Liverpool don't strike me as trying to go and blow teams away. They've got a lot of matches to play.
Yeah. Liverpool need to turn around a bigger goal difference now, though. If City were
that's a good point.
Beat,
yeah, that's a good point.
Is that a good idea? I mean, if he blanks against Villa, it's really that way.
Yeah.
Although I suspect that if we're going on that basis that Pep rewards people that come in and do well, then Jesus might be on the bench on Wednesday. I don't have any insider knowledge or anything like that, but there's an argument to say that Jesus could be benched against Wolves, and therefore, if it was Salah to Jesus that was the move, then perhaps not.
Cool. That's it for the questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for doing that. Just a quick look at my team. I've got Pope in goal, Rudiger, Cancelo, Matip, Silva and Laporte, Coutinho, Saka and Gallagher, and Salah and Ronaldo. I have one transfer left, and I have the exact money. I think I got the exact money to go Ronaldo back to Kane or Son. I think I'm going to Kane, as I said. 142nd, nothing to shout home about. Bit gutted I haven't really managed to capitalise and move on. Made some pretty pretty boring moves. Haven't had much luck in places. Bringing back Rudiger nice and early for him to get, injured and stuff. And Matip dropped on the weekend, though. I know he's kind of highly owned. Coutinho really hasn't moved on, as he either, which is a shame. But I can't argue with the season. It's probably a fair reflection of where I am. I think if I can finish in the top 150 now, I kind of have to settle for that. I'm in some, a couple of leagues, a couple of combo leagues as well. So holding on to 150th probably be okay. So I'm, kind of reasonably happy there. So that's my team and my plans. Looking at the leagues now, Four Nations League. My teams are 6th and 5th now, so we'll just go on the top 5. So I've moved down to 5 now, 3258. Liam Dorian 3265, so he's 7 points ahead of me now. Liam Dan has moved up 3268, so he's 10 points ahead of me and only 3 ahead of Liam. Paul McAnulty in second place, 3321. Ian Parrin up top, 3340. The English flag flying high. At the moment as it stands, only 19 points difference, so you never know. You could turn it around, Paul. We will see.
I'm a realist. I think he'll not only have a better team set up than me just now, but also has the transfers to optimise moves, I think.
Indeed.
My goose is cooked.
Yeah. And for third place, the battle is on. 10 points between third and 5th. That's going to be an interesting battle there. Hub £500 League. 10th place, Peter Gilderdale. 9th, Calvin Guest. 8th, Dean Hicks. 7th, Billy Fraser. 6th, Ian Parrin. 5th, Anup Prashant Raja. 4th, Kieran McKenna. 3rd and 2nd, Kieran Sutton. Top of the shop by 50 odd points. Still, Frog Skills. I don't know how many times I've said this season. He seems to have been top all season. Liam Stevens, very well played there, Liam, and well done everyone there in the Hub £500 League. And as we go to the overall leaderboard, this is where it gets mega interesting. 10th place, Lisa Mitchell. 9th, Kieran Sutton. 8th, Thomas Kucharski. 7th, Neil Curra. 6th, Byron Radford. 5th, Andrew Wright. 4th, Perry Hart on 3408. 3rd, Mark Wisdish on 3412. 2nd, Dave Perrins, who was in the chat, Simple Gold Chubbers, 3414, just 2 points ahead of 3rd, and just 10 points behind Frog Skills FC. Liam Stevens, who is still top by 10 points. What a finish, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely fantastic. Just, what is it? Between the top 5 now, there's just 23 points. Incredibly exciting there. We will follow that until the death. Well done all. I mean, what an amazing season you've all had. And Dave has been up there, all season, well, for the second half of the season anyway, hasn't he? Very well played, Dave. You've managed to hold on really well there. Really good stuff. Well done to everyone in the top 10. Incredible stuff. And that is it for us for this week in our penultimate episode of the season, Paul. It's amazing how quickly it is coming. There still seems to be like loads of football left, but we've only got one pod left for next week.
I better use my time building cribs and push chairs and stuff. So.
Exactly. Really enjoy that, Paul. I'm very envious of you and spending your time. Ian's just said Lisa Mitchell is also top of the big cash league. Very well played there, Lisa. As usual, thank you to all those for joining us. Thanks for those who are going to watch it back and those who listened. Your continued support is much, much appreciated. And thank you so much, Paul, as usual, for all your research, insight and thoughts. Brilliant stuff. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY.
And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available in all major podcast platforms. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. Also, don't forget to check out FF Stuff, who's got some incredible Sky stuff on there. We'll be back next week, looking ahead to our final episode of the season, the Game Week 41 preview. Stay safe all, and goodbye for now.